first I had to conquer the idea, and later I appreciated it as a beauty.
When I initially played through the FINALS Skyway Stadium, it felt familiar. The idea of a virtual space mixing parts from other maps instead of formally translating a new real-life location didn't quite land for me. That was until I stumbled upon this building. Today, I'm tapping into my architecture background to discuss how the use of modernist principles makes the office diorama stand out from other POIs in the finals. The office diorama is a skyscraper tower located on the west side of Skyway Stadium. It features a minimalistic black-coated exterior that wraps around the entire building all the way to the penthouse sitting at the top. There lies an office space for Dragon Constellation Studio, one of the newest brands introduced in the finals world. The interior is arranged as an open layout that connects areas in various ways to create a feeling of spaciousness. At the same time, traversing from one level to another is rather seamless thanks to the use of alternate double-height ceilings that break the volume vertically. In terms of spatial arrangement, the ground floor has two different reception areas, a server room, a meeting room, and several workstations. The second floor feels larger because of its connection to other levels, the mezzanines, and access to terraces, but it also has different desk areas and conference rooms. And lastly, the third floor, which holds offices and quiet zones. It's a very satisfying space to occupy. Multiple entrances, foyers, corridors, stairs, and landings, which not only work as a real-life scenario but make for a great gameplay experience. While most players would just brush it off as good game development, these design choices are actually rooted in architecture principles that emerged back in the beginning of the 20th century with the avant-garde movement known as Modernism. In fact, I'm sure all of us at some point in our lives have used the term modern to describe something relating to the present, or even referring to it as something new. The reason for that is because modernism revolutionized the way of thinking and put an emphasis on experimentation, the rejection of predetermined rules, and freedom of expression in creative fields. In the case of architecture, that form should follow function, and that materials should not hide their true nature. When observing the office diorama, even at first glance, we can easily pick up on key attributes that directly correlate to these modernist tenets. One of the most noticeable aspects of any modernist building is the use of clean lines with minimal orientation and sleek, consistent surfaces, a quality present around this entire skyscraper. Distinctive line patterns define the exterior facades of the structure as well as accentuating different areas and interior design elements. Additionally, these areas, their structure, and systems are for the most part derived from rectilinear forms that provide more practical functionality, which inherently results in spaces that are at once complex in thought yet simple in application. However, this level of simplicity is generally achievable with structural systems that allow for open layout formats, providing large, uninterrupted living spaces for free-flowing user experience. Another common factor that plays a role in open layouts is the use of glass, typically in floor-to-ceiling windows designed to flood the spaces with natural light. This facade treatment also extends to interior elements such as partition walls, allowing for even more relation between spaces. Lastly, modernist buildings were quite known for the use of industrial materials such as steel, iron, concrete, and of course glass, with the caveat that they should remain unpolished, unpainted, exposed. As I've said before, Embark Studios has a keen interest in accurately representing historical places in the finals. And while the office diorama is just a fictional building, I believe it has a very specific source of inspiration, one that actually jump-started my entire analysis. This is Crown Hall, one of the most architecturally significant gems of the modernist movement. and it was designed in the 1950s by the man you heard in the epigraph of this video, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. It is a delicate yet sophisticated building for the School of Architecture at IIT, the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. Mainly characterized by an aesthetic of industrial simplicity, the two-level building is configured as a pure rectangular form, enclosing a column-free interior space on the upper level that sits above a semi-buried lower level which holds offices, meeting rooms, and services. Strictly speaking, it showcases many core elements of the modernist design vocabulary shared by the office diorama in the finals, and why initially I compared the two. However, while revisiting all of these historical references, I couldn't help but to draw a deeper connection between Mies van der Rohe and Embark Studio as pioneers in their respective industries. You see, Mies didn't receive wide public recognition in the Western until he was 50 years old. The foundation for these projects and his shift from more classical designs to modernism all took place in pre-war Germany. In fact, from 1930 until 1933, Mies served as the last director of the profoundly influential art and design school known as the Bauhaus. He then emigrated to Chicago, where he became head of the IIT's architecture program and contributed to the master plan for the campus. Unfortunately, he had to wait for the post-war building boom before many of his designs were translated into reality, and eventually be recognized as the avant-garde for the international style, which he exemplified in the Crown Hall design. Even then, shortly after this commission was completed, architects began to question the relevancy of his work. It wasn't until years later that it was seen as such a successful icon of modern architecture and became an accepted mode of building in American culture. In a way, I see the studio's continued journey and philosophy in the same light as Mies' influential legacy. From the Battlefield and Mirror's Edge series at DICE to the Finals and Arc Raiders at Embark, they are some of the industry's most experienced first-person shooter developers. And even after releasing these critically acclaimed titles, they are still pushing the boundaries and exploring ways for players to effortlessly and intuitively change rules and possibilities in gaming. And while Embark's representation of real-life locations as their maps for the finals is, at its core, a look at the past and hence classical, the path to execute those ideas is in fact aiming at the future, and in a certain way, modernist. For they are revolutionizing the way of thinking in game development, and putting an emphasis on experimentation, the rejection of predetermined rules, and freedom of expression in their own games.